Hey guys, Mark here from codewithmark.com. Once again, the website is codewithmark.com. In this particular video, I'm going to share with you something really cool that I have used in one of my recent projects. And that is something that I call JavaScript storage, like MySQL. Like for example, let's pretend for 1 second that what you see on the screen, there's 3 rows, is what your MySQL table looks like. And if you want to edit any of these, you could just edit the field and everything else. However, what if you could use this JavaScript storage like you would in your MySQL table? Meaning, let's pretend, like I said before, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Well, 1, 2, 3 columns. And in these columns, you can change the column name, row, the entire row, and everything else, and delete it. You probably have never heard of this before, this methodology that I'm going to share with you. And this philosophy is going to revolutionize the way you use JavaScript and create web pages, because it's going to speed up your website or your web projects tremendously. I would imagine if you get this right, and then things are going to start moving as soon as you click on something. So let me show you what that means. So this application, basically what it is, you can add a new event, view all tasks, and delete all of them. So let me refresh this. So by default, we have 3 rows that come in. So if you want to add another row, I can click on add new row and say task. So I'll just call this test 1, 2, 3, and then if I want to add another date, and then boom, done. And here I'll just call it testing 1, 2, 3. Nothing special, kind of boring stuff, right? Use data entry, basically nothing special happening here. However, if I click on save, and it automatically saves it here. However, if you want to delete one of these, and let's say I want to delete it, and I say, hey, do you want to delete it? Yes. Once again, nothing special, right? However, let me show you the code behind what is happening. All of this, before I show you the code, it is not being stored in local storage. It is not getting connected to MySQL server or MongoDB or any other external storage. Everything is happening within this particular page. So let me show you the code. So the code is, and this is very, very cool. And when I discovered this particular strategy, I was like amazed. So what happens is basically, this is the regular HTML. Nothing's like amazing going on here. So I'm just using a regular bootstrap CSS and then jQuery. This is my preference for JavaScript library, and then Bootstrap JS, and then I'm also using the Awesome Functions library here. So if you want to check that out, you can check it out at awesomefunctions.com. And then here on page load, well, let me go up here. So there's another script here that says storage JS. We will look into that later on, but just let me show you, just so I can have some data available to me when the page loads. So there's a variable called TBL task. TBL stands for, those of you who are coming from or know of Microsoft Access VBA. That's when you create a table in Access, you call it TBL. That's just a general constant that everybody uses, people who are coming from or know of a Microsoft Access part. But in any case, so I'm just creating some fake data here. There are 3 rows. So we got row number 1, and in this particular row we have record ID, task name, date, task description. And I'm just saying, hey, give me 3 rows. So 1, 2, 3, and then when the page loads, display these 3 rows. And just to show you what happens, so I'll go here, and what I'll do is I'll refresh the page, and then these are the 3 rows that it comes from array. And you're like, oh my God, wow, whoopity-doo, you're showing it stuff that's already in your JavaScript. What's so big deal about that? Nothing yet. However, on page load, let me just get this out of the way. On page load, these are the 3 rows that get added. However, if I want to add another row, I can go in here and add another row, call it 1, 2, 3, and then whatever date or whatever date I want to put in it, blah, blah, blah. And then it automatically gets added. Let me bring this back up here to this TBL, this array automatically. So picture this for 1 second. You have this table or array. If we're talking about JavaScript here, you have array. Just for the sake of argument, we'll just call array a table for moving forward. So you have this table in which you can append data, delete data, and do all your CRUD operation: create, read, update, and delete. You can do all of that in there. And then you can do that in your application. So imagine this for 1 second. You have this web page loaded up. The first 3 records you have, rows of records that you have here already displayed. And then later on in your web page application, something happens and you want to record it in some fashion. You want to store it somewhere. You can obviously store it in HTML. You can. And you're part of your page, create another div and then store the stuff in there, which is easy. So which means you have to write 3 lines of code and then boom, you get that back. You could do that, or you can store it in local storage. You could also do that as well. You can also store it in cookies. You can do that as well. However, the difference between storing in local storage or cookies, it will take you a little longer, even though it's going to be fast. However, since we're talking about speed here, because that's the most important thing nowadays, the faster the web application is, the better your website rank up and better the user experience is. So having said all of that, if you can somehow store everything in JavaScript in terms of your local, rather than using a local storage, you can use JavaScript storage, or more importantly, variable storage. So picture this for 1 second. In your application, you have this one variable called TBL task. You can call it whatever the hell you want, does not matter. And then you can assign it to an empty array. So let's just do that for 1 second. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to uncomment this. So this is an empty array. So I'll just make it something else. So if I reload the page now, so it's going to have nothing at all. So we have no data whatsoever. So if we want to add data rather than using a local storage or cookies or anything else, I could just click here and say test1, date, test1, add it, save it, boom, done. And long as your website does not refresh the page, you can do CRUD operation like this. You can add stuff to your array or table. You can delete stuff from your array or table, and you can update stuff. So let's just do this. So if I want to add another one, say test2 and blah, 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 and I'll just add another one, call it test2. And then there you go. So if you want to edit any of this, and I'll show you the code as soon as we're done with this particular part of it, and then you could be like, oh my God, as I discovered this, I was amazed, because in my project, when I implemented this, the user experience just went off the roof. People were like, oh my God, it's so fast. I'm like, wow, like that's the feedback that I got. It was so fast. And if you implement this in your website or on your web project, people are going to love you. They're like, oh my God, you are the best. I don't want anybody else but you. So let's say if I want to edit this, so it recalls it, and I want to say testing 007 or 007, and then save it, update it, and boom, it updates it right here. If I want to delete it, I can delete this. And if I say, or before I do that, I want to add another one. I say, oh, change my mind. I want to go back and look at all the tasks that are currently in my table. I can click on this and it comes back in here. If I delete it, all of them, I could delete all of them and boom, done. All right, so enough with that. Let's look at the meats and potatoes of this little bad boy. I'm sure you cannot wait to see it. So here we go. So you already seen the first part where it's an empty array. Let's just pretend that we have empty table. There's nothing in there. However, if you want to have some table that you want to assign some data to it, like I did before, like some fake data, you can assign it here. But for this particular example, we'll just say we just have empty table and there is no data in there. So now we want to store data in here. So let's look at the storage.js. So this is basically it's the click event. So if the page reloads it and somebody clicks on this is gonna show this particular form. Nothing special. That's not, well, it is something special, but not the main thing here. So basically what this does is it grabs a template, which is a div right here, this particular new template. It grabs all of its HTML and loads it in screen data, which is this class, and dumps it in here. And that's why you get this. So this is not the scope of this, how to get this done. The more important stuff is how to add stuff to your JavaScript array, as well as delete it, edit it, update it, and all that happy stuff. So I'm gonna go through this and I'm gonna skip some of the validation part. I just did it just because I'm a little anal, because I want to, if I create something, I want to make sure it's done properly and all that good stuff. So, but I will share the link with you where you can get this code, download it, use it, and test it out, and then understand it better. But for this particular video, I'm not going to go line by line, like what the hell is this doing? Like, for example, this is just getting the name element of the task name, date, and description. And then I'm validating to make sure that something is in there. Like, for example, if I refresh this now, click on this, and then boom, I say, hey, error message, blue. If this is null too, it's going to show error message. This is null, it's going to show a error message there as well. So this is basically the validation process is happening right here. Nothing special here. But here is where the magic happens. So in this case, we're saying our table is empty. So we create a little object here, call it blah. You can call, I just call it add task, but you can call whatever the hell you want. And then here we're adding a few things. One is called record ID, task name, date, description, and these 4 objects. And then, and you're gonna love this part, you call the array variable, which is TBL task, and you push, which is JavaScript array a function, and in here, and that's all you do, and it adds it. It will add your data right into this table. Great. You're like, oh, whoopity-doo, I know this, let's move on. But it is whoopity-doo. Just by you doing this, you adding stuff to your table. Think about this for 1 second. I'm sure you have used arrays before where you've done it in one process. Like, for example, a click event. You did something, you got some data from Ajax or whatever, and then you dumped it into your view, and then you're done with it. However, here's a trick. What if you can use one array and just assign that a variable towards the top of your page, and when you do your Ajax process, you can store it right into that variable or assign it, and then later on during the somewhere down your page when one of your processes, you can recall that particular variable like I'm doing here. And that makes it 1,000,000 times faster. So all of this particular thing, as I was testing it out, this is taking, get ready for this, not 20 milliseconds, not 40 milliseconds, but half a millisecond for it to do anything. So basically you click it and instantly it happens. Instantly. It does not get any better than that, or more importantly, faster than that. So this is adding the table to this variable. So basically, this is one row, you're adding it to the table. And then later on, once it's added, then you can use that information later on in your process, somewhere in your web page if you need to. And then say, hey, if you want to, once you add it locally, for example, local storage wise, whatever, or instead of local storage, you use the JavaScript storage this way. And then you also send the information back to your server. And that's that. So this is how you add it. Let's look at it, how you view it. View it is so simple, like seriously so simple. All you do is, I'm just calling it all tasks. You assign it to the variable called table, all tables in this case, all tasks, TBL task, and then you get all that value. And I'm just doing this process where it creates like a table format, whatever. So basically, I'm going over with the for loop saying, hey, if there's a length, take the table array and then loop through it and assign each one of those records. For example, record ID, assign it to a column, task, assign it to a column, date, description, assign it to a column. And after you're done with it, just dump it out to a screen and show it. Simple, nothing special. That's just view. But here's the thing. You don't have to do anything drastically. You literally say all tasks, which is the table name, and you recall. Get this, you recall it. That's all you're doing. No for looping, no callback function, none of that crap. Just simply a variable name. You're done. You have the data at your hand to do whatever you want. No waiting, and in a half a millisecond, you will have all the data that is in that table. Like, think about it. How great is that? All of the data in half a millisecond. Like, wow, that's amazing. All right, let's move on. So this is how you get the data. Now, editing is even more simple. The process that I'm using is, like, for example, let me just add, you know what? I don't want to add it, so I'll just cheat a little. So I'll just comment this out and just add the data on the fly. So there's my 3 records. So if what I'm doing is, since I added a ID, I'm also adding an ID to this particular link saying, hey, I have an ID here. So let me show you here. So this is where it is. It's just a random text that says, hey, blah, 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 blah. And then I've assigned a custom element called record ID. So what is going to happen is that if I click here, it's going to go and only grab this data and put it into this view. That's it. Nothing major is happening. So this is what is happening here. So this is where it says get the record ID from a custom element, a custom attribute that I added called record ID. So I assign it to a variable, and then I'm pulling the template again from it, and I'm saying, hey, update the particular fields. For example, update the task name, the date, and the description of it. So that is what's happening. Nothing special there. However, so this is what's going to happen here. And then later on here, this is how I am getting the particular record ID or record row and saying, give me only that particular row. So I'm using a jQuery function called map, and this is the array that it takes a parameter, and then it's gonna spit out a value and an index. You can use it if you want to, but you don't really have to. So I said, grab me the row, go through all the rows, however many rows you have, and then long as the record ID of that particular row matches with the record ID that I want to look for, return the value and then assign it to this particular variable called data. And then later on, I'm assigning a value to each of these fields or whatever they are. So example, task 1 will be added, task 1, the date, the description, so on and so forth. So this is what's happening here, then it's going to show it. But I do want to advise you during my text testing, this map particular function, what it does is it will assign all of the rows. So for example, if you are doing the validation where your record ID is duplicated or there is more than one particular row with the same record ID, is going to spit out all of the rows that matches it and put it in an array. So when you're using this process, just be mindful of it. Rather than you getting in one single row, you're going to get all of the rows that match that criteria. That might be good if that's what you want. It might not be good if you only want one. So just keep that in your mind. So that is what's happening here. This is how you pull one particular record. Let's move on how to update it. So updating is fairly easy as well. Just like you would, we follow the same process like we did if we want to enter a new entry. So for example, I'll go here, enter new entry. It's going to be the same view, but instead of adding it, if I click here, say where it says save, instead of that, it's going to say update, but the view is still going to be the same. So you're still going to have 3 fields. They're going to have each of one of these field is going to have appropriate data across the board. So this is what's happening here. And also it's going to have a record ID assigned to this particular button, just so I know which record I should go update it. So for example, if I pull this record, I want to make sure when I go back and update it, I only update this one, not this or this, but only this. So this is where the record ID part comes in handy. And then don't worry about this part. That was something different, so we can ignore that completely. And then we're going to be using, so I'll delete all that. So this is the code here. I'll save it. And in here, what I'm doing again is I'm using a map function. Same thing like I did before. But this time, as before, when I says view, and it returns the whole row, but this time around, I'm saying when the record ID is what I'm looking for, matches what's in the table, go to that particular field and update its value accordingly. I'm returning it, but I don't have to. I could just simply comment this out and it will still work accordingly, just to show you. I'll refresh it and I'll change this to 000, 000, and I'll change this to 12 and I'll update it and it still works accordingly. So we can completely ignore this part. So this is how you update it. So simple, right? Isn't it? I don't know if you start to realize how easy it is, but at the same time, how powerful this particular methodology can be if you implement it correctly in your application. This is going to make your application so fucking fast. Like really. All right, let's go to the delete part. So I'm using the awesome function in here, whereas there is a function that's called confirm. Basically what it does is, like if I click here, bootstrap modal will come up, say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? If I say yes, then it's going to delete it. If not, then it's going to say no. That's all that is happening in this function called confirm. However, should you choose to use another process, you can, but the important part is right here. as you've probably seen it by now, where I'm saying I'm using the same map function. It just makes the life a whole lot easier. I'm using a jQuery map function, but if you like to use other functions or processes or methods, you can do that. I'm sure there's more than one way to skin a cat, but I like to use jQuery to skin my cat, but that's just how I do it. So in here, what I'm saying is grab all of the rows that record ID is not equal to the one that I'm looking for. So for example, get me, if I want to delete this, for example, if I say click delete, after I say yes, then it's going to say, hey, after I say yes, it's going to say, hey, grab all the rows where record ID for this particular row not equal to, and then it's going to get the other two rows. So it's going to take this out completely. So this is what's happening here. And after that, it's going to return the value. So if you got 1,000,000 rows, it's going to, and out of the 1,000,000 rows, you have one that you want to delete, and it's only going to delete that one. And once it's done, but here's the thing, it's going to give you back all of the data, all of the rows, and assign it to a variable. And then what you can do is go back to your table and then assign this that does not have the one that you want to delete to your table, and this is how you delete it. So simple, like literally so fucking simple. And then I'm just saying, hey, click here to view, and then boom, done. And last but not least is delete all. So this is happening when I click here. So if I refresh it, if I want to delete it all, this is the prompt. So just like the single delete, same process, I'm using the same function, confirm from awesome functions library. But the most important part of all of that is right here. You simply say, if you want to empty your table, the table name equal open bracket, close bracket, and then boom, you're done. Your table is empty. Like literally, it is that simple. So there you have it, guys. This is how you can use JavaScript storage like MySQL. You can create as many tables as you want or whatever, and then you can fill them up with any data you want as your page load if you want data, or you can fill it up or fill them up according to your application as your user goes through a different process. So for example, one of them being is, let's say when this page loads up, one of the process might be that you want to get users IP address. So you can call API, get your information, and then rather than you storing in local storage, you assign it to a variable and then say, hey, this is the information for this particular user. And then when you're ready to use that information, let's say if you want to send this to somebody, some process in your server, say, hey, if user click here, then I want to trigger an event that says, hey, this particular user from this ID, from this his IP address did this. So I want a collection of IP address. So when you click on this button, add new, then on that process, rather than going to local storage, which could potentially take, depending on how big of information you got in your there, like 20 milliseconds to 40 milliseconds. It's not a lot, but everything adds up. But think about it this way. Would you rather wait 20 milliseconds or half a millisecond? I would rather wait a half a millisecond. But in any case, so you click this and you go to this variable called IP user or something like that, and then you pull that in half a millisecond later, then you use the data, whatever you want to use with it, and you send it out, and off you go. And that will make your life a whole lot easier, simpler, and your application will be super fucking fast. I hope this helps you, and I hope you learned a lot from it. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to drop me an email on my website, which is codewithmark.com. Once again, the website is codewithmark.com. And also, do not forget to subscribe. This does help me to create more valuable content on YouTube, so that way YouTube can rank my videos, and it will help you get to my video faster. So if you find this helpful, do subscribe, do like the video, do share, and all that happy stuff. Until next time, Happy coding.